Hello, welcome back to week 154 on Out on That Line podcast. I'm Jeff with my co-host Alex. As always, Alex, how you doing this week?
Jeff, I've been called a gentleman, but never a gentleman. I'm just here with this dog who is sensually assaulting a Kong full of peanut butter. This episode, Jeff's got some dog bits happening. This episode is for the dogs, man. This one is for the dogs. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and by that, he literally means these dogs could pop off at any point, and there's nothing he or I or you can do about it. So what we're going to do this week is we are going to talk about the newest Eminem album. That'll be a little bit later, but Alex, I wanted to hear a little bit more, expound on your experience that you had on, I believe, Tuesday evening in Portland.
It was a Tuesday evening in Portland, Maine. Call it Friday on a Tuesday because we went to a concert at Thompson's Point. Great venue. Here's a pro tip. If you can't get a ticket for one of the shows, get a boat. Rent a boat, rent a kayak, rent a paddleboard, and just float on over. There were a bunch of people doing that. There were a bunch of fucking fat, sallow metalheads on like a little fishing trolley, just sitting there with their linty belly buttons out, just headbanging to Coheed and Cambria.
It was probably the closest thing to a bath a lot of those Coheed fans have had in a while.
It was like someone ought to tip that fucking boat over and toss some shampoo in the water. Because that's the thing, Jeff. I'm sorry. I know you're a child of the fence. There were a lot of people there who looked like they had just gotten out of the shower, but they did not smell like it. It was something.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah, but great vibes. Everyone was just happy to be there. Controversial take. That was the first time I saw Coheed live. I was pretty whelmed. I don't want to say underwhelmed or overwhelmed. I was whelmed. It took him a minute, like in all seriousness, it took him a minute to get cooking. It was kind of weird. Like they opened with like, "This is what a great Coheed fan I am." And your own jackhammer. Boom,
Oh, yeah.
dun, dun, dun. What's that called?
All right. In Keeping Secrets of Silent Earth.
Of course, in Keeping
Yeah.
Secrets of Silent Earth.
Yeah.
I wanted to make sure you knew.
Can't believe you didn't know that.
And then like it took them until they did a song. I think it's like The Crowing.
Mhm.
It took him until The Crowing to like really get cooking. It was like 3 or 4 songs in. Claudio like wasn't hitting the notes. He was very tentative. He wasn't singing a lot of the lyrics.
He's very sick right now. So
Oh, is
apparently
he?
the concert last night, we're recording this on a Thursday. The concert last night, like his wife basically sang the concert
Wow. Okay.
instead of him because he's apparently got like no voice. So I'm sure the Portland show was when that was like in full swing. And like, to be perfectly fair, like I've seen Coheed a bunch, and it's if you're a Coheed fan, like they don't miss musically. You know what I mean? Like the riffs, like they're perfect when they play live.
Oh yeah, they're still tight.
You know, and I have seen a couple shows where, you know, I've seen a bunch of shows with artists that are not feeling well, and it's a big difference. And Claudio like gets way up there with his pitch on a lot of those lyrics. And I think when you're sick, like that just becomes untenable and impossible.
Yeah, so I guess that makes me the jerk. I guess I'm the asshole.
I'm just trying to probably explain why it wasn't, you know, if you didn't feel like it was as good as it could be, I'm not here to argue that you're wrong. You know, I think that's the reason why.
Yeah, well, and don't get me wrong, for the level that I'm into Coheed, I got my money's worth. It was really kind of one of those like social outing things because friend of the show Tanner, friend of the show G Bad, friend of the show Rory. G Bad, you're dreaming, keep dreaming. He'll know what it means. So yeah, they were coming up to Portland, and I was like, yeah, fuck it, I'll go. Because they shared a bill with Primus.
Oh yeah.
And Primus was great. Primus was weird as shit. Primus was great. And then like the highlight for me was Puddle's Pity Party opened the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know him, giant creepy clown man.
Yeah.
So he came out and did Holy Diver with Primus. And it was fucking amazing. Rory, who has no joy in his life, I think his face would hurt if he tried to smile. I looked at him and he lifted like a 1/4 inch off the ground and went, whoa, okay. And that was the most interested and excited and vulnerable I've seen that man in a long time. So that tells you anything about how good this was. It was really good. They did a fun job. Maybe I'll post a clip. I took a video.
And I think so. I'm going to be seeing Coheed next month, but they're going to be on a different bill. They're going to be with Incubus when I see them, which I am also looking forward to. I think I'd rather see Primus, but I'm not upset about that. So Coheed or Claudio has been singing Anthem by Rush with Primus for like the majority of this tour. So I'm wondering if Puddle's Pity Party doesn't normally sing every night, if that like took the place of when they normally do Anthem.
It could be because I'm really going to show my ass now. Primus did, I don't know the full title, but Rush, Cygnus, whatever the fuck.
Mhm.
They covered that, and Claudio came out dressed up like the Grim Reaper and did like the "Wow." I was like, what the fuck is that? What the fuck is happening? Primus, goddamn weird. Great stuff. And hilarious anecdote to end the thing on. This woman that I work with, the registrar at work, was like, "Oh, you're going to a show at Thompson's Point." It's just this like old salty Maine woman. "You're going to a show at Thompson's Point. What are you seeing?" I said, "Coheed and Cambria with Primus." And she's like, "Oh, I've never heard of him." And I was like, "Well, yeah." And then there's like a crazy clown opening for them. And she was like, "Who's the crazy clown?" I said, "Oh, I don't know if you saw him. He like blew up. He did a cover of Royals by Lord." "I don't know who that is." "Okay." "He just like is a clown who's huge and covers stuff and has a crazy voice and is big on the internet." And she goes, "Oh, Waffles?" I said, "What are you fucking talking about?" She pulls out her phone, types in Waffles the clown. Nothing is coming up. She's like, "God damn it." I type in Puddle's Pity Party and I show her and she's like, "Yeah, goddamn Waffles. That's the one. I know who that is." I was like, "I'm going to kill you. I'm going to
oh,
kill
that's
you."
that's incredible. I can feel every bit of that, and I can imagine the accent that this woman was probably carrying around.
Yeah, she sure was. "I don't know who that is." "Oh, it's Waffles." I'm like, "No, it's fucking not. It's Puddles." That's what I said, Waffles. I'm just like, you fucking. She's a great lady. She'll just come into my office to try to swear a lot. Um, so
That's all
yeah,
perfectly legal.
shouts out. She's a great lady. But I was like, I'm going insane. I'm taking crazy pills.
And then you played her Jerry was a race car driver.
Yeah, then I played her Mr. Crinkle.
Oh god.
"Hello, Mr. Crinkle."
Yeah, they're so weird. Definitely recommend going to listen to some Primus
Hell yeah.
if you folks are into the weird stuff. But what do you say we talk about this Eminem album called The Death of Slim Shady, and in parentheses, Coup de Grâce.
Let's do it.
So this was, I don't know how I anticipated it was, because I think from when it got announced to when it got released was a pretty short time span. I think it was like March that we started hearing about it. And then it released in July. So to me, I've always been generally an Eminem fan. I don't think you can be part of my age group and not have listened to his music extensively from ages like 12 to probably 23. Um, you know, Very interesting artist. Certainly back then, if you go back and listen to a lot of those songs, there are some things said in those songs that probably wouldn't fly today. But I did find in the beginning, kind of half of this album, as the first time listen, he sure did try to bring back that old sort of attitude. Um, and I don't know how many times Caitlyn Jenner was mentioned in this album. Megan Thee Stallion, I think, got 2 different shout outs. There was quite a few repeat references. And I think when you first listen to this album, you get it, you get an idea of it. And then as you get through the rest of the album, you kind of get a better picture of what it's supposed to be and kind of, I think, what the aim is. But what was your experience with Eminem, Alex? Was it similar to mine?
Yeah, similar. I think even for me, like maybe a step below that, where it was a lot of cultural osmosis, like number one on TRL for the 900th week in a row. Like I very much remember like Eminem being in the culture and like big in the culture. Um, Never something that I dove especially deep into because I just wasn't into like the horrorcore elements of it, like the Kim song where he's like, saying all the wild stuff about like
Yeah.
they won't find all the pieces of you.
That whole album, man, the Marshall Mathers LP is like, I can't imagine really anything more violent than that album. Like, it was
Yeah,
really,
man.
really bad, and I was very young. I think I was like 8th grade or freshman year of high school or something when that came out. Like, definitely too young and impressionable to be listening to stuff like that.
Oh, dude, like by the first time I listened to it, it felt like borderline demonic. I was like, I shouldn't be listening to this.
Yeah, well, you were even younger, so they had to.
My time would be better spent reading the
Yeah.
Necronomicon. Um, yeah, so like I'm not into that. It's just like, Immortal Technique, Dance with the Devil, he's
Whew.
staring into the eyes of his own mother. Like, I don't like that stuff. And I have a strong stomach and I like all kinds of weird dark shit. But for me, I'm just like, this is just like wallowing in like nihilism and darkness. I'm not even sure what the point of this is. It's not shocking. It's
Mhm.
just kind of like, oh my God, like heavy and unnecessary. Um, and I think maybe for me, that's the key to this album. A lot of it, predominantly, this album was unnecessary. And we'll get into all the reasons that is. Um, but yeah, no, this was I won't bury the lead. I did not like this at all.
So I will mostly agree with you on this one. And so I'll give you kind of my reasons why, and why I kind of mentioned like partway through the album you kind of understand what's supposed to be going on here. And obviously the name of the album tells you that, but like when you get, I don't know, 2/3 of the way through the album or so, it makes it very clear, and like you understand that it's the death of Slim Shady, right? So
Guilty conscience too.
yeah, and I think that's when the album, for the parts that I enjoyed, that's where basically I found all of it, was that last kind of third, maybe quarter of the album. Um, what I don't, I guess, surface level things I didn't really like about, a good chunk of the first part of the album, probably, I'm gonna look up the track numbers here. So yeah, Guilty Conscience is really kind of where I started. Like Houdini's it's the pop song, so like it's fine. You know what I mean? Like that was okay. But kind of once you hit Guilty Conscience 2 is where I really felt like that's the Eminem we should have been getting the whole album. And the things I didn't like, again, surface level, I don't necessarily love the rapping for the sake of rapping and seeing how like many words you can fit in and all. Like it just, there's a huge crowd for that and a huge fan base for that. I'm not really part of that fan base. I think when it's done well, like I like Busta Rhymes. I don't like Busta Rhymes all the time. And I think he really is in part of, and he should be proud of it. If like he's put in work to be this good at rapping that quickly, and kind of having all those internal rhymes, and like being able to really turn a phrase inside out. Like he's clearly worked very hard at that, and there's plenty of people that love that. I'm not a big fan of that. I think one thing is the best parts of Eminem were when he was a storyteller. When he was taking you through a journey, it wasn't just like, let me see how many different ways I can say that I don't like this thing. It was more of you go on this journey with him. When you think of like the verses in Forgot About Dre, like one of the most iconic songs, like rap songs of our generation,
Yes.
probably of all time. And you think about the way he goes through that and tells the story, and you can see it, and he's got all these ad libs, and you can like, it just feels off the wall and crazy in a good way. And to me, like there was some parts of Eminem that I like. There's some songs I won't go back and listen to just because I don't need to hear that again, especially from those first few albums. But there's plenty of those songs that I do go back and listen to because they will and always will be jams. And I found that there weren't many of that level of song on this album. And I don't know if any songs on this album would have been good enough to be on, like certainly not the Eminem Show. Like that's probably my favorite album by him overall. And to hear him just do this like rapid fire machine gun kind of rapping, I don't love it. Some of the choruses were fine, but there was also getting into a little bit deeper level, like the things he was saying. I understand it's the Slim Shady character, right? Like that's the whole idea. This is like killing this thing off. And, but I feel like there's creativity in the words, but not in the subject matter. And I think that was a big problem for me is like it just wasn't that interesting to listen to for the first 40 minutes of this hour-long album.
It was neither as clever nor as interesting as I think he thought it was making it, and as I think he wants you to take it in the context, like, "Oh, conceptually, it's the death of Slim Shady," and it's like, so I understand the concept. Slim Shady is the alter ego that says all of the fucked up stuff and, like, absorbs all of the, cultural ricochet when, you went too far this time, you're making fun of Christopher Reeve. There was a lot of Christopher Reeve content on this
That was
album.
the other one I couldn't think of, like 5 of them. Like I couldn't believe it every time it happened.
Dude, there was just some stuff where I stopped and I'm like, "What the fuck?" Like, even, like, satirically, again, I don't wanna say any of this offended me. I'm not like, "I'm offended." But I'm just like, "What the fuck is what's happening here? What's the point?" Um, there was just some truly baffling stuff because it's exactly what you said, how I'll phrase it is he was trading on all of the things that people it was member berries. Member guilty conscience? Member when I, do the rap like this, use it like trading on, like, all of his old flows, like trotting out tired old flows, not saying anything particularly meaningful from a story perspective, like you said, on a concept driven album. It's just like, oh shit, Slim Shady's running amok, but there's not really a narrative to it. And it hammers over the head this concept of cancel culture. Oh, I hope I don't get canceled. It's like, dude, you are not extreme enough. The things that you are saying are not provocative enough. This is just like, yeah, maybe at like the peak of cancel culture, this would have been a problem for you, except you're the person, it's like you're sitting there in front of a cop with your chin out being like, "Go ahead, why don't you hit me? Why don't you hit me?" Like, you can't goad them into doing it. You're trying to goad everybody into cancel culture. They don't give a fuck. Like, this is not audacious or relevant enough to have anybody get outraged about this. What's outrageous about it is just like, for me, the fact that you would take one of the shittiest Steve Miller Band, who is one of the shittiest bands around. You
Thank you.
would take
Yeah.
potentially the shittiest Steve Miller Band song, Abracadabra, and you borrow that for your fucking hook in the chorus. Abra, abracadabra. I'm about to reach in my bag, bruh. I almost threw myself out of a moving car the first time I heard that. He rips off Without Me word for word at the beginning. Whatever, that's fine. Megan the Stallion is always doing, and if the beat live, Little Juke made it. Like, she's always doing that. That's fine. Sometimes you have a special move. This was not the move for him. This fucking Houdini song, rough cut. Rough cut. To release that as the single too, I was like, Jesus Christ, what is happening to me?
Yeah, I don't know what other songs would have been the singles here, but I would love to. This is a great time to point out the skit. Now that you mentioned the Steve Miller song, the skit towards the end of the album, the Guess Who's Back with Mr. Ken Kniff himself. He says that, half a bag of Viagra, like
Jesus
the
Christ.
tune of Abracadabra, and that was had to have been like probably the funniest thing on the album for me
Don't
overall.
get me wrong. There was some funny shit. Like, there's the one line, I don't want to butcher it, but like Amber Heard shopping at a mattress firm, I'm gonna put this shit to bed.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I always say, oh, rappers are English lit nerds. I wouldn't qualify this as English lit,
No.
but it was still that, like, sensible chuckle. I listen to that and I go,
There was, I'm telling you, like the back half of the album when he went back to being Marshall Mathers, Eminem, was so much better for me. I just wish I didn't have to get through the first like 2/3 of the album to get there. And there was a couple spots that had like some okay parts to them. That's like it wasn't all absolutely terrible, but for the most part, it was just like throw it in with like the weakest part of his catalog, which is probably like the 4 albums before this one. and and I felt like I got a lot more of the older like better Eminem, because on the back half, as cheesy as you want to say that, like Temporary, the song he did with Skylar Grey, as cheesy as you want to say that one is, like, I would much rather get that version of Eminem these days. Like, there's no way you can recapture like what you used to do on the Marshall Mathers LP and the Slim Shady LP and the Eminem show, and even like a little bit on like the Relapse and Rehab and that and kind of that generation of albums. There's just no way you can recapture that, because like the things you were saying would not be cool to say now. Like they were pushing the envelope back then, but I think we're good with that kind of those kind of viewpoints. But what I do want to hear more of is somebody that can write lyrics as well as Eminem can, talk more about his life now. And I think that you get that it was such a better version and so much easier to like stomach compared to that first part of the album, because how many times do I like when's the last time Caitlyn Jenner was even really relevant? Like, who cares? You know what I mean? And when's the last time like he made fun of Christopher Reeves? He's been dead for how many years now?
Oh, fucking who knows? At least 10, probably more.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to listen to that and feel like he's doing anything new. And I think the idea and the concept of this thing of like killing off that character, like that's a great concept
I agree.
in theory. In practice, it's kind of broken. It just doesn't seem to work. I think maybe if you take out, like, I don't know, five of the songs off the first part of the album, like, and there's you can easily just pick your five. Honestly, I won't care which ones you take off. Um, like, I feel like it's a totally different experience, because you get a lot less of a dose of like this Slim Shady character that he's like giving its last legs to. You get an idea enough of like what they're saying. Maybe you cut out a few of those references that you repeated five times,
Yeah.
and you give us a little bit more of a streamlined storyline, because to have now we're basically like you have that short of a version of like of Marshall Mathers of Eminem versus the amount of the Slim Shady character that you gave us. It's like, what are you saying about are you saying there's like not much left of your career? Like there's not enough time? I feel like you would want to put that character to bed early and then spend the rest of the album talking about like how you've grown from that since then, since that character. It's just I feel like that's such a better way to go.
Yeah, I think there's a deft touch you have to like you really have to figure out where you're going with this. For me, it was like there are two clear directions. It's either a total bait and switch and you kill Slim Shady off in the first 2 minutes. Dog scared the shit out of me. You kill Slim Shady off in after the first song, halfway through the first song, and say, "Surprise, he's fucking dead." And this whole thing is going to be Marshall Mathers. We're just getting it out of the way. Or you truly do, you have him start saying, "Yeah, hey, I banished Slim Shady. He was going to fuck everything up, and he's this dark part of me from my days of addiction and like extreme anger, and I'm putting him away. That's not me anymore. I got my kid is old now. I'm an old man. I'm an elderly man making this rap. No more Slim Shady. The world is done with Slim Shady." And then Slim Shady kind of like the Dark Lord Sauron, like keeps growing in influence throughout. So you get like a couple Marshall Mathers tunes, but then like the wheels start to come off and you're like, oh, this is getting crass. And then more and more and more Slim Shady takes over and says all the things that Marshall Mathers can't say. And it just like builds to this fever pitch to then the point where it's the two personalities right at the end are duking it out. Marshall Mathers wins. He smokes Slim Shady and he does one last fucking barn burner song to take the album away. And that's it. And the next thing he makes is Marshall Mathers. It truly is the death of Slim Shady. This felt what we got felt like a fucking gimmick. It just felt weird to do it 2/3 of the way through and then have this superior back half that I would have enjoyed more. It's just like he didn't lean into the concept enough, and the Slim Shady material was not good enough. Like he went so over the top trying to be provocative and make it ridiculous. And it just like there was no love, there was no craft to it. It just sucked. It sucked. The more I talk about it, the more I've whipped myself into a lather. I really thought this sucked.
I think I don't think we're going to be going back much to listen to it, but I will say maybe hot take. I like the Jelly Roll song.
Oh, fuck me.
I knew
Fuck
you.
me.
I knew you were gonna hate it. I absolutely knew you were gonna despise that song.
Do you like Jelly Roll in general?
No, I mean, you know, I don't really care about it.
I was looking for a hard fuck no, Jeff. You really let me
I
down.
just don't know. I mean, I feel like I don't have any. I don't think I have a good reason to like hate his guts. You know, I'm not going out of my way to listen to his music. I don't think what I've heard is very good, but I did like this song. You know, I don't know what else to tell you. I really don't. I feel it. I feel a little bit, you know, a little bit ashamed of myself for it, but it was decent. The
I wish I
Toby
wasn't in
song,
a basement and I'd throw myself out the window.
I will say Big Sean and what was the other guy's name on Toby was Babytron. Like that song was a banger. Like
Yeah, it was pretty good.
through and through, I think the only like true awesome banger on this whole album. The back half of the album had a lot better moments and a lot better of like what I wanted to hear, but I don't think any of the songs were really perfect at all. I feel like that one was as close to it as he got.
Yeah, Toby was good and Fuel was actually good because JID, not someone I'm familiar with, but
Yeah, that was very
clearly,
good.
yeah, clearly sat under the Eminem learning tree.
Yeah.
So that was great for that, and that was still in the Slim Shady's Alive and Well portion of the album. Um, but just like some of the self-indulgent bullshit we got to get through to get to something like Toby, Lucifer and Antichrist. One of the weirdest ones, Road Rage,
Yeah, that
where
was
what the fuck was that song? The first, again, not offended, but even though these people are my constituency, the first verse is about how fat people are disgusting and should die and are killing themselves, and we shouldn't feel bad for them, and we shouldn't help them kill themselves by telling them they're beautiful. And I'm like, what the fuck, man?
Mhm.
And he's just like, it's not even clever. He's literally just being like, clogged arteries, diabetes, they'll cut your foot off. Like, it's just like this very angry screed against fat people, which is especially ironic because he does a song with Jelly Roll at the end.
Yeah.
Oh, he's one of the good ones. And then the second part of it, he's like, yeah, let me wade into the transgender issue. And I immediately rolled my eyes and went, oh,
Yeah.
fuck. Not because I thought he was going to say anything. There's nothing shocking to be said about the transgender community at this point because so many people like Dave
Mhm.
Chappelle and J.K. Rowling have blazed that trail. There's really nothing left to do about it to be audacious. So I'm like, why is he commenting at all?
Mhm.
Nobody cares. I can guess what he has to say. And it's exactly what he said, where he's like, I don't have a problem with anybody. And hey, you want to cut your dick off, you do whatever you want to do. That's between you and the Lord and your dick. But just don't make me memorize pronouns. And I'm just like, this is brutal. This is absolutely brutal. No one asked for this. You randomly decide to go for the people of size community. And then all of a sudden you're like, I think people need to know where I stand with the transgender issue. It was bizarre. It landed like a fucking major clunker. It
Mhm.
just wasn't a good song. It wasn't clever. It wasn't needed. Like, we didn't need this I'm sorry, I didn't order this. I didn't order this. Return to sender.
Yeah, it was I think there was a lot of a lot of things that he could have just left be. You know what I mean? I think there was a lot of places that he went to on this album, like, specifically in that song. Like I almost couldn't kind of believe it when I was hearing it. I was like, there's no like the whole like punching down thing never looks good on anybody. You know, I think that's a big reason why, you know, there's so many comedians that do that sort of thing, like a Dave Chappelle, you know, where it's like you can make anything funny in the world. You just have to make it funny. You know, you can't in punching down like someone like George Carlin had it for everybody. You know, everybody gets it equally, but generally he's not picking on entire groups and like kind of summarizing their existence as one thing and then making sure that and I also don't think he was naive enough to think that everybody was going to care what he had to say about it.
Well, I think someone like George Carlin too, like, he has the benefit of I think he sees like every regular he saw every regular person is like on his level. So it's like, I'm ripping on the Polacks. I don't know if you can say Polak, whatever. I'm sure it's fine. If I have to make fun of my own people, I'll say WAP. So like, yeah, you can make fun of them because you're just like you're in it together and you're not like making fun of them for being lesser than, and like you're like elbowing laterally. Or the thing that George Carlin did was punch up, and it's a big club and you're not part of it.
Mhm.
You ain't in it. That was like a great thing that he did, and it's why he was one of the best. And I just look at some of the stuff, like I like Dave Chappelle's comedy,
Mhm.
but the problem with this, like the last two, is they weren't comedy. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing, man? Like, what is this? And I think one of the very disingenuous things that this album does is it had like Eminem addresses it, where it might even be in Guilty Conscience too. I can't remember, but it's basically like making an excuse for punching down. It's like, oh, punching down has always been like a thing. It's been part of the bit. And it's like, that doesn't make it good or like clever. So he tries to excuse himself for punching down and then like kind of preempt, oh, I'm going to get canceled for this. And it's like, anybody that has to tell you how crazy and dangerous they are is neither crazy nor dangerous. It's the people that think they're perfectly sane that you have to worry about. So this whole thing just felt like so disingenuous. It had nothing to say. It wasn't outrageous. And along the way, he just took shots at people who, what did they do? Again, what fat person hurt you worse than Jelly Roll could hurt you? Okay. The man is a hack. He's a fucking hack. I'm glad he turned his life around and found Christ. If that's what he wanted to do, God bless his pea picking little heart. But he's just, his music's not good. He sucks. He's not interesting. He's one of these like dumb Walker Hayes. I can't figure out, why are you so popular? It's just like everything about Jelly Roll does not land for me. Just like this album did not land for me. I got to give this whopping stinker a skip it.
That's expected. And I will I'll tell you, go look up Theo Von impersonating Jelly Roll. And
Is it amazing?
I think he had like Joey Diaz on his podcast or something, but Joey Diaz couldn't even get a word out because he was laughing so hard. Because Theo, I mean, and he went on for like a couple minutes doing an impression of Jelly Roll, and it was absolutely fantastic. But to get back to the rating, I'm gonna do a little thing here where I'm gonna like the concept of this thing. I love that. I'm gonna buy the concept. I'm gonna absolutely suggest that you skip this album. I think there's probably plenty of books that go along with this concept that you could probably Google that sort of thing, and Chat GPT will tell you a bunch that will go right along with that. But if you're looking for like classic Eminem, it's not here. If you like the super speedy, like as many words per minute kind of rap, like a Busta Rhymes on his worst day, this album's probably got some stuff for you. But for me, it's a definite skip it, which is not something I ever thought I'd really say about an Eminem album, but I just don't see how I was left with any choice in the matter.
I, I I didn't expect to have this visceral of a reaction to it. I thought it was going to be like fine. Not the best thing I've ever heard, not the worst thing I've ever heard. It's not the worst thing I've ever heard, but I was just baffled. Just baffled the entire time. We've listened to some truly baffling albums throughout the lifespan of this
Mhm.
podcast. We've listened to some really great stuff. We've just we contain multitudes. We're blessed with a bounty, and mercifully, for everybody out there watching this, there's a lot more where this came from at youtube.com/C/out on that line. Folks, that's right. We didn't forget the plug. You know what I've forgotten for this entire season of the show was Frank Zappa. I haven't been doing the Zappa bit. I took a year off. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It wasn't a conscious decision. I fucked up. But you can go back and understand like I'm sure you're lost if you just came to us. You don't know what that bit is. So you got to go get caught up on past episodes at youtube.com/C/out on that line. Folks, there's even more stuff. We react to videos. We do the singles series. That's getting weird on the record. the most pretentious hipster snob shit you can see from me and Tanner without your eyes getting wet. There's all that and more. And all you got to do is subscribe, turn your notifications on, smash that like button, leave a comment, most importantly of all, and just show us some love. God knows we're in a season of our lives where we could really use it at youtube.com/C/out on that line.
Oh, that was unexpected and wonderful way to end the episode. Thank you, folks. Until next time.